The latest developments around the New York Yankees have caught the attention of fans everywhere, and there's a lot to unpack after a series of moves and updates that could shape the beginning of the season. Over the past few hours, the organization made another move that continues a very familiar pattern for this franchise, one that longtime followers will immediately recognize. The Yankees have once again decided to move a position player in exchange for pitching depth, reinforcing the idea that the organization continues to prioritize building a strong and deep pitching staff above all else. This time, the player heading out is infielder Jorbit Vivas, who is now on his way to Washington after a trade that brought a young pitching prospect into the Yankee system. It is another example of the front office focusing on arms, and it shows that even depth players can become valuable trade pieces when an organization sees an opportunity to strengthen the pitching pipeline. Vivas originally arrived in the Yankees organization with some quiet optimism surrounding his potential as a depth infielder who could provide versatility and energy off the bench. However, his time in New York ended up being much shorter than many expected. During his brief stint with the team, he struggled to find consistency at the plate and never really secured a stable role in the lineup. In a limited number of appearances, he showed flashes of defensive flexibility, but the offensive production simply was not there to justify a longer stay. For a team with postseason ambitions every single season, roster spots are extremely valuable, and when an opportunity arises to acquire a promising arm, the Yankees rarely hesitate. That is exactly what happened here, and it fits perfectly into the organization's long-standing philosophy that strong pitching depth is one of the most important ingredients for a successful season. In return, the Yankees acquired a young right-handed pitcher who has quietly put together some very interesting numbers in the minor leagues. He is still very young, but his development over the last season has drawn attention because of his ability to miss bats and control games from the mound. One of the most talked about aspects of his game is his changeup, which has already developed into a very effective pitch and could become a major weapon as he continues to progress through the system. Strikeout numbers often tell an important story about a pitcher's potential, and his recent performance showed that he can generate swings and misses at a high rate. For an organization that is always looking for pitching depth, especially with injuries and long seasons always being a factor, this type of arm can become extremely valuable, even if he does not reach the major leagues immediately. While that trade was one of the most immediate pieces of news, another major storyline surrounding the Yankees right now involves the health and recovery of their young shortstop, Anthony Volpe. Fans have been waiting for updates regarding his return, and the timeline is now becoming a little clearer as the team prepares for the start of the season. Volpe has been recovering from shoulder surgery after dealing with an injury that he actually played through for a significant portion of last season before eventually undergoing the procedure. The fact that he continued to play despite the injury says a lot about his competitiveness and his importance to the team, but also explains some of the inconsistencies that fans noticed throughout the year. Now the focus is entirely on his recovery process and getting him back on the field at full strength. The current expectation is that he will begin a rehabilitation assignment in April, which essentially means he will go through a process similar to spring training before returning to major league action. This is an important period for him because not only does he need to prove that he is healthy, but he also needs to show development at the plate and in the field. Over his first few seasons, he has shown flashes of power, speed, and defensive ability, but there have also been moments where inconsistency has been a concern. Still, it is important to remember that he is very young and still developing at the highest level of the sport, which is never an easy process for any player, especially in a market with as much pressure and attention as New York. The Yankees organization still believes strongly in his potential, and internally there's a lot of confidence that he can take another step forward once he returns fully healthy. His combination of speed on the bases, power potential, and defensive range at shortstop makes him a very valuable player if he can put everything together consistently. For the Yankees, getting him back on the field and performing well could be one of the most important factors in how the early part of the season unfolds. The team has postseason expectations every year, and having stability on the left side of the infield is going to be a key part of their overall success as they try to compete in a very competitive division. At the same time, The Yankees are also dealing with some important decisions regarding their pitching rotation as the season approaches. Injuries and inconsistent spring performances have forced the team to reconsider how they will structure the rotation at the beginning of the year. This is always a critical decision because the starting rotation can set the tone for the entire season, especially in the first few weeks when teams are still trying to find rhythm and consistency. With some of their top pitchers not ready to start the season, the Yankees are being forced to adjust, and that has created opportunities for some pitchers while creating uncertainty for others who are still trying to secure their roles on the roster. One of the biggest discussions right now involves how the team will handle the back end of the rotation and which pitchers will ultimately earn those spots. Performance in spring training always plays a role, but the organization also has to consider long-term development, health, and overall workload management. It is a complicated balance because the team wants to win games now, but they also need to make sure they are developing pitchers properly for the future. These early season decisions can sometimes have a ripple effect that impacts the entire pitching staff later in the year, especially once injured players begin to return and the team has more options available. All of these storylines together show that the Yankees are entering the season with a mixture of uncertainty, opportunity, and cautious optimism. There are questions that still need answers, especially regarding health, pitching depth, and infield consistency. But there's also a lot of talent on this roster and a lot of belief inside the organization that the team can compete at a high level. The early part of the season is going to be extremely important for setting the tone, and every roster move, every rehabilitation update, and every rotation decision is going to be closely watched by fans who are hoping to see the team build momentum right from the start. As the season approaches, the conversation around the Yankees is increasingly shifting toward the pitching staff and how the team plans to navigate the early part of the year with some uncertainty surrounding the rotation. When a season begins with key arms unavailable or still recovering, it forces the coaching staff and front office to think creatively and make decisions that may only be temporary but still very important. The first few weeks of the season often shape the rhythm of a team, and how the Yankees manage their pitching early could have a significant impact on their position in the standings later on. Because of this, every decision regarding the rotation is being analyzed very carefully, especially when it comes to younger pitchers who are still developing and trying to secure permanent roles on the roster. One of the most interesting situations involves the competition for the final spots in the rotation. Spring training performances open the door for debates about who is ready, who needs more time, and who might begin the season in the minor leagues despite having major league experience. For pitchers, consistency is everything, and when command issues start to appear, teams often prefer to give those players more time to work on mechanics and confidence rather than throwing them into difficult regular season situations. Development is not always a straight line, and the Yankees understand that rushing a pitcher can sometimes do more harm than good, especially when that pitcher is viewed as someone who could be important for the future of the rotation. At the same time, the team is also evaluating workload and long-term health for several pitchers. Modern baseball places a huge emphasis on protecting arms, managing innings, and avoiding unnecessary risks early in the season. This sometimes leads to unconventional decisions, such as shorter rotations at the beginning of the year or carefully planned appearances to control pitch counts. Even though fans often focus only on wins and losses, internally the organization is also thinking about how to keep pitchers healthy and effective for the entire season, not just the first month. A long season requires depth, flexibility, and patience, and the Yankees are clearly trying to balance all of those factors as they prepare for the opening stretch of games. Another important factor is the eventual return of key pitchers who are expected to rejoin the rotation later in the season. When those players return, the entire structure of the pitching staff could change again, which means some of the pitchers currently competing for spots are essentially fighting not only for a role now, but also for a role later in the year. That creates internal competition, and competition often brings out the best in players because every outing matters and every performance is being evaluated. For younger pitchers especially, this period can be extremely important because a strong start to the season can change their career trajectory and solidify their place on the roster. Offensively, the Yankees are also looking for players who can step up early and provide stability while the team deals with injuries and roster adjustments. Early season production can make a huge difference, especially in close games where one timely hit or one defensive play can decide the outcome. Teams that manage to stay consistent during periods of injuries often find themselves in a strong position once the roster returns to full strength. That is why depth players and role players often become very important during the first months of the season, even if they're not the biggest names on the roster. Championships are rarely won by stars alone. They are usually won by teams that get contributions from the entire roster over the course of a long season. There is also a lot of attention on player development and whether some of the younger players on the roster can take the next step forward this season. Every year, teams need at least a few players to exceed expectations in order to truly become contenders. Breakout seasons, unexpected improvements, and young players finding confidence at the major league level can completely change the direction of a season. The Yankees are hoping that some of their developing players can provide exactly that kind of boost, especially in key positions where consistency has been an issue in the past. As the opening games get closer, the overall feeling around the team is a mixture of patience and urgency. Patience because several important players are recovering and will return later, and urgency because every game in a competitive division matters. A slow start can create pressure very quickly, while a strong start can build confidence and momentum that carries through the season. The Yankees understand this balance very well, and that is why every roster decision, every pitching plan, and every rehabilitation timeline is being handled very carefully behind the scenes. What makes this period particularly interesting is that the team still has many unanswered questions, and those answers will only come once the games actually begin and players start performing in real situations that matter in the standings. Spring training can only reveal so much, and the regular season always brings surprises, both positive and negative. Some players will emerge as key contributors, others will struggle and need adjustments, and the roster will likely change multiple times throughout the season as the organization continues to search for the best possible combination to compete at a high level. The next few weeks will be very important in shaping the early identity of this Yankees team, and fans will be watching closely to see which players step up, which pitchers secure their roles, and how the team handles the challenges that always come at the start of a long baseball season. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. In a development that is already sending ripples across the baseball world, whispers are growing louder that Juan Soto has made a pivotal decision about his future. Sources close to the situation suggest that the star outfielder has accepted a proposal that would see him return to the New York Yankees, a move that could dramatically reshape expectations around the franchise. While no official confirmation has been made, the speculation has gained traction among insiders who believe discussions progressed swiftly behind closed doors. Soto, widely regarded as one of the most disciplined and dangerous hitters of his generation, had been at the center of intense interest from multiple teams. Yet, according to these emerging reports, the allure of unfinished business in New York may have ultimately tipped the scales. The Yankees organization, known for its relentless pursuit of elite talent, appears to have acted decisively. The idea of Soto rejoining the lineup has ignited excitement among fans who remember the impact he can have when wearing the pinstripes. His combination of power, patience, and postseason pedigree would instantly elevate the team's offensive profile. Still, skepticism remains. Some league executives are urging caution, noting that negotiations of this magnitude are rarely straightforward. Others believe the timing of the rumor could be strategic, potentially influencing parallel talks elsewhere. Regardless, the momentum behind the story continues to build. If the reports prove accurate, Soto's return would not only signal a major win for the Yankees, but also alter the competitive balance across the league. For now, all eyes remain fixed on what comes next, as anticipation grows around a move that could soon shift from speculation to reality. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.